Hello and welcome to the second week of the ILC Daily Show. I'm Martin Murphy. We're live today from Geneva and from Beirut via our virtual studio as last week. It's a pleasure to be with you again. Today I'm joined by Salwa Kanana. She's our Senior Regional Communication Officer for the Arab States, and she's joining us live from Beirut. Hi, Salwa.
Hi, Martin. It's great to join you again and to join you all for the ILC Daily Show. As we have been over the past week, we're broadcasting live on YouTube, on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and interpretation of the show is available in both French and Spanish. Martin?
That's right. So in this show, as last week, we'd love to hear from you. So please send in your questions, and we're going to be putting those questions to our experts later on in the show. You can do that if you're following us through Twitter by using the hashtag ILC Daily Show. Or if you're following us through Facebook or LinkedIn, you can use the comment box on those platforms to get to us. Now, the issue that we're going to be looking at today is skills, lifelong learning, and also the issue of youth employment, issues that have been very prominent over the past year since the start of the crisis. So, like I said, please do send in your questions. You can start doing that now. Please remember to use the hashtag if you're following us through Twitter. Salwa?
Yes, please do you post your questions, and in a short while we'll be hearing from Srinivas Reddy, Chief of the ILO Skills Branch, and we'll also be joined a little later by Sukti Dasgupta, Chief of the ILO Employment, Labour Markets and Youth Branch, and you can post your questions for both.
Yeah, thanks, Salwa. So yeah, a very interesting show that we have ready for you today. But before we get to that, the ILC plenary continued today. The ILC plenary is where employers, workers, and government representatives come to discuss different key world of work issues. And today, during the plenary, we heard from 41 delegates, and as they did last week, they had comments about the Director General's report to the conference. That finished a little while ago, and it'll be back tomorrow as usual, beginning at 1 p.m. Central European Time. Salwa?
Yes, thanks, Martin. COVID-19 has had a devastating impact on the world of work. Our World Employment and Social Outlook report, published at the beginning of June, showed that labor market recovery will be uneven until 2023. A new data update on youth employment, published at the same time, showed that young people, especially young women, have been hardest hit. Martin?
Yeah. So as we heard from Salwa, the youth employment has been a key issue that the world of work has been facing. And at the same time, the demand for new skills is something that has really accelerated and something that we will continue to see in the future. Now, here's a very short video on how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted on youth and their education. Let's take a look.
To help us explore the skills and lifelong learning topic in more depth, we're very pleased to be joined by Srinivas Reddy, Chief of the ILO Skills Branch. He'll be taking some of your questions, so do please post yours on Twitter using the hashtag ILC Daily Show or in the comment section under the player on Facebook. Welcome, Srinivas. Now, COVID-19 has accelerated world of work transformations, including use of new technologies. Has a skills gap emerged in labor markets as a result of that?
Oh, yes, very clearly, the pandemic has accelerated the changes in the labor market. Hundreds of millions of people lost jobs, and some of them lost forever. At the same time, we have seen the rise of new occupations, for example, the care economy, particularly in high demand for health workers and skills in delivery and distribution channels. The skills gap existed prior to the pandemic is in fact further widened due to sudden loss of millions of jobs and also lack of strong links between the world of education and world of work. So therefore, first of all, it is very important to increase investments in job creation because people need to have jobs at this crisis period. Then match these investments with upskilling and reskilling of people with the new set of skills required for promoting smooth transition between school to work, but also most importantly between work to work, from the sectors in which jobs have been lost to the priority sectors that are creating jobs. So timely assistance and support to people is critical as we build forward better.
Thank you, Srinivas. Before we continue, just a reminder that you can post your questions on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and also on Twitter. Srinivas, we've seen an increase on online learning during the pandemic, but obviously not everyone has access or the same kind of access to online learning. Isn't there a risk that some people are just left behind?
Martin, you raised a very important question. In fact, the COVID pandemic has shown the ugliest face of the digital divide. The digital divide has existed before the pandemic, but what we have seen is a very emergence of two clear worlds, a world that can telework and a world that cannot telework. Similarly, a world that can go to online and distance education and a world that cannot. So hundreds of millions of people, young people, do not have access to data or basic equipment like a smartphone or a laptop or many other tools. Therefore, they have been denied education and skills development. Very clearly, we need to address this access issue, access to digital equipment, tools and learning materials on a basis of urgency actually. Not only providing access to the learners, but also importantly looking at the needs of the teachers, providing access to the teachers themselves for these new equipments and data and tools, and building their capacities, particularly in the developing world, be it Africa and large parts of Asia, will be hugely affected and lagging behind if we don't address this access issue and promote a blended learning so that these people do not have to wait for several decades. I see a clear opportunity for leapfrogging so that these generations do not have to wait for another decade or so to access the digital and blended learning opportunities.
Thank you very much, Srinivas. The ILO Centenary Declaration calls for investment in skills and lifelong learning. What action is needed to equip people of all ages for the future of work?
The ILO Centenary Declaration has called for promoting education to all and also opportunities for skills development. That means actually one needs to revisit the way the education is organized. Skills development and lifelong learning has to be the organizing principle of education, moving from only the initial education point of view. So the focus on initial education has to shift towards lifelong learning, meaning enabling people to have access to education and skills development opportunities throughout the active stages of life. That also implies a huge investment need to be increased in education and lifelong learning as a shared responsibility. The ILO Centenary Declaration promotes that the lifelong learning and skills development opportunities have to be promoted as a shared responsibility between individuals, enterprises, and the government. So therefore, uh, a systematic effort need to be made to promote lifelong learning through a process of social dialogue where all government agencies adopt a whole of government approach and actively involve employers and workers organizations in a governance role, not just consultative role, but in a governance role, so that the skills development, acquisition, and reskilling is organized through a principle of social dialogue by active participation of businesses and workers organizations with all government agencies.
Okay, thank you very much, Srinivas. Now we have some questions coming in through social media. This one is from Luz from Spain. It seems that Luz has been following the ILC because she says the ILC will discuss skills in November when it reconvenes again in November. And the question is, Srinivas, can you tell us a little bit about what's in store, what's up for the discussion, what can we expect in that discussion in November?
So in the November general discussion on skills and lifelong learning, the ILC will take up the crucial question of how to reduce the skills mismatch, what needs to be done. The ILO governing body has asked the ILO to take the global lead on skills and lifelong learning. For ILO to be emerging as a global leader on skills and lifelong learning and upscaling the work of ILO on skills and lifelong learning, the International Labour Conference in November will provide guidance on how ILO's work can be upscaled and what are the several measures that need to be taken into account to address the skills gap, but also the role of the employers and workers organizations, as well as the whole of government approach means what, how to address the issues of lifelong learning, how to provide opportunities for skilling and upskilling, how to promote access to people in disadvantaged situations. So those are the key issues that will contribute towards an ILO global strategy on skills and lifelong learning. So we are looking for the guidance of the International Labour Conference in November, December towards developing a global ILO skill strategy.
Thank you very much, Srinivas. We actually have another question from our viewers. This question is from Benjamin from Thailand. The pandemic, Benjamin says, has affected many workers due to the increase of the use of machines and robots. What skills do these workers need, or will these workers need in order to learn? And what is the ILO doing to support them?
Automation and technological disruption is a reality that is affecting and pervading all sectors of economy. Therefore, what we have now seen is the need for digital skills, basic digital skills to people working in all sectors of economy. At the same time, the increased emphasis on STEM skills, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics skills, along with core work skills to be able to secure jobs in the digital economy. One of the very important lessons that is emerging is to promote opportunities for people to be able to acquire soft skills that are skills like change, adaptability to change, communication, creativity, and collaboration, so that people are ready and be able to work in the changing situations and acquire new skills. So skills for digital economy also has implications to acquire basic skills, core work skills, and the importance of the foundational skills is getting more and more relevant these days.
Srinivas, now before we go to the next interview, we want to bring you the first of this week's videos from the field. This is the part of the show where we show you the different projects that the ILO has in different parts of the world. This is where the Decent Work Agenda comes to life.
Thank you.
And this one comes from Ligaya Dumawang. She's the technical specialist for the Skills 21 project in Bangladesh. This is a project that is about improving skills and the transition from education to jobs. Let's take a look.
Hi, I am Ligaya Dumawang, a technical specialist with ILO's EU-funded Skills 21 project here in Bangladesh. Bangladesh has some 7,000 technical institutes, like this one I'm standing here right now. It is vital that these technical institutes teach the skills that meets the needs of the industry and also provide qualifications to help job seekers move easily between the education, training, and the job market. That is why the Skills 21 project is working with the government, industry, and institutes to modernize the TVET system and make it more relevant and inclusive. The project is supporting the development of a Bangladesh National Qualifications Framework, a gateway for trainers and workers to obtain qualifications that is recognized in the country and abroad. The project is supporting the transformation of 9 partner institutes into centers for skills excellence and modern TVET institutes. It has also proposed the establishment of a sector-wide integrated framework for TVET for good skills governance in the country. These initiatives will ensure better learning experiences and decent opportunities for young men and women across Bangladesh. These initiatives help the employers hire the skilled staff the industry needs. Thank you.
It's really great to hear directly from colleagues in the fields who have been working extremely hard to keep projects running during these extremely difficult times. Thank you, Ligaya, for your video. And the Skills 21 project is delivered in partnership with the European Union. We'll be bringing you another video tomorrow. Martin?
Thank you, Salwa. So as we said before, the pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on young people, both in terms of access to jobs and access to education as well. And we know that young people, particularly women, have been really affected by lockdown measures in sectors like tourism, the entertainment sector, hospitality, the service sectors. So we want to take a deep dive into this issue, and for that we're joined today by Sukti Dasgupta. She's the chief of the ILO's Employment, Labor Markets and Youth branch. Sukti, hi, great to have you with us. How are you?
Good, how are you? Thank
Great.
you for having me.
A pleasure. Thank you, Sukti. Sukti, we know right before the ILC, your team put out a statistical update on youth employment. Can you tell us the key messages or the key data from this report, please?
Thank you. Yes, indeed, we just recently published an update to further our understanding of how young people have been hit by this crisis, and also to complement our analysis from last year. And if you recall, last year we had highlighted that youth were inflicted by a triple shock by this crisis. First, their education was being disrupted. Secondly, they were, young people entering the labor market were finding it very difficult to get into the labor market because of a freeze in hiring, etc. And thirdly, young people were losing jobs and incomes because of the sectors they were engaged in, as you already said, Martin, and because they tend to be in the informal economy and more precarious forms of employment more than adults. And all this was also affecting their mental health. And this year, the ILO has estimated that young people or youth employment declined over 2020 by 8.7% as compared to 3.7% for adults. And if we look at country level data, and we have actually now 58 countries from which data is available that we have analyzed, we find that this is far more severe in middle income countries and for young women. And in fact, for the Latin American countries, I can give you an example from Argentina, Peru, Chile. 2 in 5 young women has actually lost their job. Now, the second major finding is that all this decline in employment is not so much being reflected as increased unemployment as increase in inactivity, which is actually a bigger concern. And we see rates of inactivity as well as not in employment, education, and training NEET, which is a SDG indicator, actually going up quite significantly in several countries, such as in Canada. Now, in the third quarter, there was some respite and there was some recovery in a few countries. But by the fourth quarter, we see that, again, that has disappeared. So overall, we have a labor market today for young people, which is very fragile, very uncertain, and tending towards greater inequality.
Thank you very much, Sukti. Now, what action needs to be taken to improve young people's labor market prospects? If you could just give kind of go a bit more in depth into that area, young people's labor market prospects as we build back from the COVID-19 crisis.
Yes, thank you. So, given the fact that there has been such a disproportionate impact on young people, the ILO is calling for targeted, integrated, and really gender responsive measures to tackle the youth unemployment issue at the moment, along with broad-based measures. And more importantly, what we are calling for is a shift in emphasis from remedial measures towards reconstructive measures to actually build employment opportunities, because you will need to reabsorb all these young people into the labor market again. And therefore, looking at sectoral policies and niche sectors such as, Srinivas spoke about the digital economy, the care economy, the green economy, where we know that there is scope for structural transformation along with jobs for young people. And all that along with investment in education and skills development, with the focus on the changes that the future of work is bringing and digitalization is bringing. But we also know that there has been a rise in inactivity, and therefore this has to be supported by very strong active labor market policies, such as quality apprenticeships, wage subsidies for young people, support to young entrepreneurs and self-employed through access to credit, finance, etc. But in terms of quality of employment too, we know that young people are more vulnerable, more precarious, more likely to be in the informal economy. So access to protection, including social protection for youth in the informal economy, and irrespective of their type of contract or type of sector, and access to rights. And we all know that all this will only be possible if this is based on social dialogue along with the voices of young people.
Thank you, Sukti. Now we have some questions coming in through social media. This one is from Gonzague in Romania, and the question reads, overeducated graduates are facing difficulties to find a job due to education-job mismatch. How does the ILO see this?
Indeed, I think this is absolutely true. We do find even before the COVID crisis, the youth labor market was not rosy. It was very difficult for young people to find jobs, and there was a mismatch in terms of jobs and skills. And part of that is, of course, you can argue what are the skills that are required and the skills that are constantly changing for a new labor market and the labor market of the future, but also the fact that there has been a disproportionate or lack of emphasis on job creation for young people. So even when you have young people being equipped with the skills, there are no jobs. Therefore, the ILO is calling for a very strong focus on labor demand along with labor supply skills policies. And as I was saying, it's important to look into niche sectors which can create jobs for young people, be it in the digital economy or other sectors, but there has to be investment. And this, of course, has implications for the fiscal stimulus that we see. And perhaps one of the messages would be, unlike in the last crisis where we saw fiscal stimulus packages or fiscal stimulus efforts were withdrawn perhaps too early this should not happen in this crisis, because the impact on young people has been absolutely huge.
Thank you, Sukti. And in fact, our next question, also from our audience, builds on what you've just said. The question is from Edson in Zimbabwe, who asks, how can youth make up for the time we've lost during the pandemic?
Yes, well, as you know, the ILO has warned about long-term exclusion of young people from the labor market because of the pandemic, long-term scarring, because the effects of the labor market today can stay with young people for many years to come. And the ILO has also called this the lockdown generation, or to make sure that we do not have a lockdown generation. It's absolutely essential to have policies in place. As I said, both from the demand, the supply, and to ensure smooth transition into the labor market. And, education and skills development policies are critical also. And as was already mentioned, there is a digital divide. So it's important that this does not exacerbate existing inequalities in the labor market. But also, one has to take into consideration the special situation of young women, many of whom have been really hardened by the crisis and they have left the labor market altogether. How do you reconcile that? How do you bring them back into the labor market? And therefore, it is important to invest in the care economy, not only to create jobs, but they have to be decent jobs, of course, but also to enable more women to participate in the labor market productively. And there also has to be a redistribution of care responsibilities within the household. So all these gender responsive employment policies are going to be critical for, to ensure that young people don't have this long-term scarring and we don't have a generation which can be referred to as the lockdown generation, unfortunately.
Thank you very much, Sukti. It's a very interesting topic. And if you'd like to read the report, you can go to the ILO website, ilo.org, and find it there. Now, that's about it for today. That's all we have time for in this show. But we'll be back tomorrow at 4:30 Central European Time. That's 2:30 GMT. And before that, if you want to follow the plenary, that starts at 1 p.m. Central European Time, 2 hours before GMT, and you can access that live through the ILO website at ilo.org/ILC live. And remember, if you want to post your questions for the topic tomorrow, which will be building back equal and with solidarity with the most vulnerable, you can already do that by sending your questions using the hashtag ILC Daily Show. Salwa?
Thank you, Martin. Tomorrow you'll have different hosts who will be joined by Martin Oltz, a senior ILO specialist on gender equality and non-discrimination, and by Michelle Layton, chief of the ILO's migrant branch. But for now, it's goodbye from me from Beirut. It's been a real pleasure to present with you today, Martin.
Thanks a lot, Salwa. Same here. We'll be back tomorrow. So I hope you can tune in and follow this show that we bring live to you every day during the ILC from our virtual studio. It's a pleasure to be with you. So see you tomorrow. Be safe. Bye-bye.